This meeting is being, thank you, Zoom, for always giving us the notification to say this meeting is being live streamed. Hey, gang, we're back. Bags, GP, JFDI, Nicholas. We're here. We're live. We made it again through another week. I'm usually not at a loss for words, guys, but I honestly don't know where in the hell to start other than I got to take my hat off to the Bears for playing a hell of a game this week, and they did everything they needed to do to make Bulls feel a little less good about themselves.
That is correct. They came to the party. So it was really funny to watch, or interesting, funny, whatever you want to call it. Watch the futures tag that January 24th pivot low that we talked about last week.
Yep.
We're talking about tech futures. Yep. Reject it on, I think it was Monday, to the exact penny. And then Tuesday come around and watch the futures break it. But the Qs reject it on it was 334.15, which it didn't touch on Monday. Went over to 334.15.
Yep.
There was no follow through. Like if you're watching intraday, you saw the 1-2 candles and then it immediately started to reverse, right? So yep. I think I was posting live as it was happening because I wanted to let people know what I was seeing. And it fully reversed that move down in, I think, an hour.
That's the pink line right here. If you're watching at home, tagged it to the T on Monday, and then Tuesday gave it a womp 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 womp.
It held the 200-day moving average, the estimated moving average on Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, just to lure in more bulls, and then smoked them on Friday.
Smoked them.
And it was a lot of the high growth names. So like that is as well played as possible in terms of, and I was a bit lost for words, I gotta say, by Friday, because I was expecting chop. I wasn't expecting some of the crazy moves down in a lot of stocks that we had. So a lot of the stuff that I was talking about earlier last week, which was the underlying was looking really well, is all now starting to look suspect. Right, we're still holding levels, and ultimately the Qs put in an inside week. The last week's open and close were inside the prior week's open and close, so technically it's an inside week. But yeah, I don't have much else to say in terms of direction. Bears stepped in exactly where you were expecting to, or where I was expecting to see them step in.
And Nick was camping, so he missed out all on the shit storm. Yeah. But thanks for being with us, Nick.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I had trail stops in positions that I have in, and nothing got hit. So
yeah, that's the other thing. So we did reject, but then the bulls came in and held the gap up, right, on the Qs.
Yeah.
They typically haven't in the past before, right? No, but like. You'll see by the end of a week on Friday, you'll see the one in June, especially that it broke in Thursday night and Friday it got demolished, right? Like on Fridays, we've tended to break down and fill gaps, right? It's been the MO for the better part of this entire year. So to see that it actually held the gap on what is usually a weak Friday in 2022 was also interesting to see. Doesn't mean they won't just gap it down below the gap and
we already opened futures with a gap down already, and it's still holding down there. I mean, obviously, we like to do this little show, this little ditty before futures kick off, but wasn't in the cards tonight. But yeah, they're already down. We'll see how it opens in the morning, or see how futures are looking closer to the open. I don't take too much stock into Sunday nights, but it is worth noting.
Yep. And the level that I'm watching here now, if the Bears follow through and push us below 316, then I'm going to be forced to switch sides.
You heard it
Right.
right there. He's going to be forced to switch sides.
Hey, dude, they keep loading up shorts. They're still going yeah, maybe it can squeeze higher if some news comes out, but it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. If they just keep shorting every single resistance and there's no buyers because no one knows where the markets are going to go, then it's a self-fulfilling prophecy ultimately. That's been a lot of this year, right? There's no buyers, and so they're shorting via calls and puts. I don't know if you guys have been watching that at all. I've talked about a lot. Is like they're not necessarily selling shares, but as soon as it gets to resistance, they're coming in and selling thousands of calls, right, to cap upside and right at resistance.
Sure.
And so that's what I've been saying. So like if they're coming in doing that, that adds pressure to the downside ultimately. So like I haven't seen much upside call buying or any of that stuff.
So our
that
good friend Zachariah McNair posted a question in the live chat on YouTube. Gap down futures good for market open? Question mark. They could be, Zach. I mean, in a typical bull market and you're looking to buy, I would say yes. Because then you've got room to the upside, right, during the trading session to buy up. Right now, I mean, for me, it's just hard to be giddy about a gap down on Sunday night. I just, it could be worse. It could be more than 0.5%, but it's just not something that really is exciting me.
I'm less concerned about the gap down tomorrow as I am just seeing us work off the overbought readings that we've been kind of putting in across the board. I mean, again, the McClellan is kind of what I mainly use as far as a timing tool goes. And like we've been sitting at overbought readings for like the last since July, early July.
I think that's fair, Nick. Yeah. Sorry.
I don't know. I'm just saying. I think I don't know what I just was chiming in. I think I'm less concerned about tomorrow as I am kind of the Qs holding, some pretty important levels, as well as getting into an oversold reading and seeing how the bounces out of that oversold reading.
All right. Well, what's your guys' pretty important levels then on the Qs? What are you looking at? Because I'm just going to be real simple and plain. I want to see it hold that 20 daily EMA.
I think
if it loses like that 319 area, then you're probably seeing, in my opinion, like 309.
Yeah, I think what is it? 314.55 is like kind of what the number that I'm watching.
Yeah,
but generally like more of a zone. I want to see kind of that 302 to 310 zone hold. The 50-day is starting to curl, and the 50% retracement is at 302.50 from this kind of leg higher. And the 50% correction within any kind of trend is typically healthy and normal. And with the 50-day curling higher, the 10 and 20-day are already through the 50-day.
So there you go, Nick.
I mean, it'd be awfully pretty if we were to kind of hold that kind of area.
So there's your 319 at the top of the blue area. There's your 314 in the middle, and there's your 309 at the bottom. So there is your playing range. Right there. There you go.
Yeah, I'm watching ultimately 315, 316, but this 318 pivot area is really important. It's when Russia declared war on Ukraine, it held that, came back to retest that same level, held that, had that bear rally back in March off of OPEX in general, like just shorts covering. That's a level that we held a few times. We came back to break it a few times in April on the China lockdown, reversed higher, broke it down again, reversed higher, broke it down finally. And then we had the final move down, because I think early June was the bottom, but we'll see ultimately. We're looking, that also lines up with the 20, 21 day moving averages, whatever you're using. it's right around there. So that's kind of what I'm looking at here. It was interesting to see Netflix for me is it's Apple kind of led us early in the week to try to get us a
We're
break
10
out.
minutes in and we got a Netflix mention.
Yeah, no, we were talking about last week, right? Market leader versus bull market leader.
Yeah.
It was good to see. So for whatever reason, Netflix was overbought at like 73 RSI when it tagged that high. I don't think it actually closed there, but if you're watching intraday, the daily RSI hit like 73, 74 after being sideways for like 3 or 4 weeks after earnings, right? So like it didn't really make sense to me in terms of why the RSI was running as hot as it was, but this week provided the cool down and it held the bull territory in the RSI range. Anything above 60 is bull. Anything above 70 is overbought. Overbought can stay a long time, but it was nice to see that this also kind of held the bull RSI range. Once again, we could just gap down and everything can die and this stuff matters. But it's just some things that I saw that I thought was very interesting to see. And even though Apple had a rejection off the gap that you talked about, Nick,
Yeah.
it wasn't like this emphatic rejection, right? Like it was just okay, we're gonna just stop buying here, right? Like it wasn't like this huge volume reversal.
Yeah, for sure.
So I thought that was constructive as well.
Me, Mr. fucking I own a mega cap tech. You know, when I'm selling Apple shares, which I did last week, you know that I think the shit has run too far. So I was unloading up here in the 174 area, 173 area. And, you know, I don't regret losing a few shares. Anyway.
No, and Apple ultimately, what is it going to do? Get to 200, right? You're going to miss out on 10 to 12% from here. So if you're holding shares, it's not like this huge move that you're going to be missing out. So I don't think it's the end of the world here because it's nearly a $3 trillion company. It's not going to double in the next year to be a $6 trillion company. So you're looking at percentages, 5-10%, whatever you're going to do. And obviously, if you're throwing some of that into the other mega caps like Amazon and it's kind of disappointing to see what Amazon did as well. I thought that was kind of brutal.
Disappointing, yeah.
Yeah,
is a great way to put it.
It wasn't a lot of volume, to be honest, but it still was quite disappointing. It essentially filled the gap up from August 9th, but broke back down below it's just not going anywhere. Ultimately, it's sideways, but it's also not breaking the earnings gap down, which is nice to see, and it's holding this 136, 133 zone really well. So it's the famous word of 2022, right? Like, oh look, it's a bull setup. Oh no, it just broke.
Well, no, I think, and I was referencing this to Hatching Gains earlier on Stock Twits, but I've said it to you guys too, right? Like it seems like 2022 is the classic I gotcha, right? Like it's going to break out, but it breaks down and it breaks down bigly. Oh, it's going to continue breaking down, but it breaks out, right? So it's almost like freaking opposite day up in this bitch with, you know, with what's happening in 2022 as far as what your expectations are. You'd think we would have figured that out by now, but some of us are still struggling. One thing I did want to touch on was the VIX real quick. I mean, obviously, you know, the fear volatility index, you know, it had, for what it did, what the market did on Thursday and Friday. You know, I can't really say that's an impressive VIX setup for me. Now it's gotten down here several times in the past and wanted to bounce out, right? And you know, in the teens in 2021, if you're a buyer of this VIX, you did well because it had some pop in it, but it still looks pretty fugly to me on a weekly and daily time frame. Now we'll see how things go in the morning. You know, if it breaks Friday's high, it might get a little bit ugly in the market potentially over the next couple days. But I still that's the one thing that's holding me onto some hope is the VIX could still shit the bed.
But the VIX has been a fairly awful trade all year, right? Like, I'm not talking about.
Well, I'm not
people who
talking
are
about
day
trading it. I'm talking about just trying to figure out how to play the market.
But it's hand in hand, right? Like, so I'm not talking about traders who are doing day trades, intraday zero DTE trades. Not talking about those people. But if you're a person who had a long portfolio and you're trying to hedge your portfolio to the downside, and you're doing it via volatility, not necessarily the actual instrument of volatility, but like selling upside calls or
Right.
doing something like that, or buying puts, right, so to speak.
Yes,
It's been a miserable trade since January, right?
It hasn't been great.
It has not been a great. So I think you're seeing a lot of that as people are like, I'm not putting any more money towards volatility. This hasn't been a good hedge. And that's usually kind of like the point of where things start to obviously explode higher.
Okay, so and Nick, I'm going to rely on you for some answers here too. If that has been a poor way for traders to hedge, then where are the opportunities to hedge, or what does this say about the current conditions of the market? Anything? Nothing? I don't know.
Are you asking Nick or are you asking me?
I'm asking you both, but
okay.
I would like some insight from Nick if he has any.
I couldn't tell you. I'm not really I don't look for ways to hedge. So if I were to hedge, if I were to think that I need to hedge, I'd be in cash.
Well, but more importantly though, but what maybe does, the VIX being a bad trade and being long the market mean?
GP, what do you think?
So
I'm not
this is my
honestly.
We hit what VIX nearly 40 back in January, right? And it hasn't made a new high since that peak. And in that entire time, our sentiment has gone from, oh, not so bad, it's a small pullback correction, to, oh my God, it's the end of a world, right?
Yeah.
And in that conversation, so like if you in January said, okay, well, I'm going to short the VIX, you kind of worked out for a little bit and then it spiked higher and then you got, so if you're buying like 3 months out or 6 months out hedges, puts, whatever, you're not doing well. Like if you're selling calls or selling puts, those are doing much better. So the trades in a lot of this stuff is selling the volatility, not buying it.
Sure. Okay.
You know what I mean? Right.
Yeah.
So, and this is the kind of you weren't going to have this big meltdown when we already had VIX at 40 back in January, because everyone is already hedged. So every time we got a small push down, 10, 5%, whatever it was, people were covering their hedges. So naturally what happens is the market started to rise, right? They're like, oh, look, it worked out. So I'm going to cover my hedge. I got a profit. And that's because before the market was even dying, we were at 40 VIX. So like what we're going to do, go back to 90 VIX when in 2020, or, even 130 VIX back in 2008, 1 month into a correction, right? Like it just wasn't going to happen. So it became this whole market is just this whole kind of, if you're not day trading or intraday trading or position trading for like resistance zones, then it's been kind of a cuckold, right? Essentially. And
I think it's indicative of the kind of market that it is,
yeah, exactly.
So like, it's just, I guess to to reiterate my point, like if I was going to hedge myself against the type of market action that's been 2022, it would be cash.
100%. Like that's but that's my general kind of viewpoint. I like to go to cash because it lets me think clearly. I don't like going to puts.
Yeah.
And you can say that I'm only a bull or whatever it is. It's just I know that I operate and I think more clearly when I don't have a position on, right? I can see more better things and stuff like that, and cash gets you flexibility.
Sure.
How much does it suck to buy puts? If you decided in January after the big post OPEX correction pop that on this next you're going to short out like 6 months, you're feeling the pain.
No doubt.
Right?
Yeah.
Right? You're feeling the pain. Even if you went 3 months out, you had to endure lots of ups and downs before you got anywhere. And all that work to maybe get 50%, 100% on your hedges. I don't know. Because hedges aren't the size of your portfolio. They're like 5-10%.
That's right.
Sure.
So like to me, the VIX is saying people aren't scared of a further move down. So I personally think it can trickle lower, and it's gotta get to a point where it's just everyone gives up on volatility as a hedge, and that's when volatility becomes a hedge. If that makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah, totally.
Right? So people have to stop buying puts. But every time they buy puts, the market goes down a little bit and they seem like they're happy. But unless they're doing like Wednesday puts on Friday,
I was happy with my 36% on Friday in my put. So
exactly. Those are the trades that are working, right? Like if you're able to do short-term 0 DTE and you're quick to cover, yes.
I know, but I hate doing it, but I do it sometimes. I don't like to put those trades out there that I do them because I don't want people to follow me into stupid shit. But anyway, I think all that's fair. I reminisce to our 6-month anniversary call with Cookie, right? And his head was just like take the opposite end of the market. And I think it's hard to do that sometimes, right? It's logical, obviously, but it's hard to do that when you have other positions on. I'm not saying that cash is a bad idea at all, but cash might make sense if you have a hard time flipping sides.
I mean, I come from a much more of a trader's point of view than an investor's point of view. Like I'm not holding positions that I've been holding, for years and trying to DCA or anything like that. Or, I'm talking like purely trading. So.
And Nick, that's totally understandable,
Yeah.
but the market dynamics are long-term investors, passive flows, right? Like, so
For sure.
From that perspective, if someone said, "Hey, I know the market's going to correct 35% in 2022," and you decided to buy puts that were like out of the money, in the money work, but you also had to pay up by early January when the VIX is already at 38 or something like that, right? So
yeah.
If you're like, oh, this, like, I just mean like it hasn't been an easy trade in volatility. It hasn't been an easy trade on the long side. There's been a lot of stuff that's going on that less is more at this point, right? Like dollar cost average into positions that you think are good long term, no doubt, but nothing's been easy.
Yeah, I think I think longer term, I think what we do from here is gonna be largely important in terms of like how we, are we gonna go back and I mean, it's in the back of everyone's mind. Are we gonna go back and test those lows, and are they gonna hold? Even like,
me, I said it last week. If we go back to the lows, we're gonna get smoked.
Oh, for sure.
If we get anywhere close to the lows, I don't think we hold, right? I think it's obliteration, right? And to me, the macros don't really support that. Companies are still doing okay, right? This is not the global financial crisis. So, but it's the options market that's driven a lot of this stuff in 2022. So if those guys are coming in and selling in a low liquidity market calls to the upside, that's going to add pressure to the downside, right? Market makers and gotta hedge. They gotta be delta neutral.
Sure.
All right. So I kind of anticipated some trouble Tuesday, Wednesday, and I was posting about my darling buck coin, and it just flat out failed area that it needed to hold. And I've talked about this previous weeks, right? Like we need to be plus 24,000. And it just couldn't, right? I mean, classic double top right here. It really ran hard into 25, but then just reversed course, just like the rest of tech and software and all the stuff that I just love to look at. And I knew it wasn't our week with that guy right there. And then the follow through was like, well, there you go. You dropped the soap, Bulls. A good game, Bears. So I'm still kind of worried about this setup. I know I've talked about it. We got to get above the weekly 21 for me to really get bullish. But I don't see how we don't come back into 20 grand again. We almost tapped it the other day, or we did actually 20,760 on Friday, I think. But yeah, it's just not looking good for Bitcoin as flashing any sort of sign of risk on. And so it's kind of got me bearish a little bit this week, and maybe for the next couple weeks. I don't know. We'll see. But that's a concern for me, as we had 1, 2, 3, 4 weeks in a row of testing it and getting above it, and then week 5 just complete failure.
I think a crypto market in general, I think a continued collapse is very bullish for the overall equity markets. I think that we'll start to see I think we did last show we talked about this. Like I think that we're going to start to see equities start to be a better sign for risk on than crypto.
I don't disagree, but I don't think we're there just yet, Nick.
Sure.
All right. More fun, exciting stuff. Setups we like, don't like. Things that we see that maybe we might think about taking action on, or just things that we think is really pretty.
Can I talk about one thing?
Yeah, you can talk about more than one thing.
A few things, right? So I thought it was very interesting to see the breakdown in oil being supported at 87 for whatever reason, but energy is actually breaking out to the upside. And energy is a very XLE, if we're using that, is a very skewed index. It's 44% ExxonMobil and Chevron, right? But this, to me, oil continues to get sold at short-term moving averages, the 8, 20-day, consistently back and forth, but keeps holding the 87 level.
Right.
But energy had a big divergence from partially because of Occidental and Buffett, right? That's that one outlier. But if you're looking at the other charts, they're okay. I'd say they're neutral. They're not bearish. They're not bullish. To me, they're kind of sitting in no man's land, or no person's land, to be more politically correct, in terms of what they're doing. I thought that was a very interesting divergence. I knew Oxy was going to be hard because Buffett was going to step in and buy at any point in time. It got low enough, right? Was not expecting him to be approved for a 50% owner. I don't think I've ever encountered that in my trading, but that was interesting to see that even with Buffett stepping in and saying, I'm willing to buy 50% of Occidental Petroleum, it couldn't take out all-time highs. I still find that very interesting, right?
Well, let's look at that Oxy chart. I mean, it had some big whamma jamma in there.
Maybe it happens this week, but
son, look at that volume.
Sorry, not all-time highs, 52-week highs.
You're the big volume playa.
But we talked about this early in our pods, right? With all that volume, it couldn't take out recent all-time highs. Which stock was it that we were talking about, Nick? I think Broadcom. I think it was Broadcom early this year. Yeah. Avgo.
It was.
It hit like it did really well, and then it still didn't. It had volume at the time too, and it didn't take out all-time highs.
Yeah, you're right. You're right. Fair point. We'll wait and see.
So it's a wait and see for me, but it was really interesting to see that you're basically Buffett saying, I'm willing to buy this company at some point, and you couldn't take out the highs from June.
Sure.
I'm not even talking about like 10 years ago. You couldn't take out the highs from June.
Zach's over here saying Oxy's got 30% more upside. It's going to $100 holla.
It might. Buffett's your savior for sure. I'm not saying that it won't, but I really thought it was interesting that in a market where there's not a ton of liquidity, that this refused to take out the June highs. And it wasn't like a lot of selling pressure on the June highs, that there was big resistance there. So maybe it's OpEx or whatever.
I'm going to read my notes that I sent you guys before we started the shows for setups we like, don't like. And it says, and I quote, Bags is bullish big pharma / healthcare and energy ? For a trade. What the fuck? And I sent that on my own behalf.
Yep.
Yeah, no, I mean, I look at, the XLE, right? And like, it just looks like it wants to go higher. I'm not saying I'm a long-term investor. I'm not saying that it's going to be good for X amount of upside, but I do think there is some upside in that chart. And coming back to Nick's good favorite, Gush, that might be the way your boy Bags plays it out. I don't know yet.
Ooh, interesting. Gosh. Yeah, actually, I mean, I kind of like it too. I mean, the daily looks very kind of like Head and Shoulders-y. I don't have any energy positions on, I don't think, other than like some solar stuff. But
I mean, it could absolutely bear flag breakdown here, right? Like that.
Yeah,
that's
totally.
That's totally a possibility. But I mean, it's got the mojo going right now, and either Gush or ERX might be the way I play it. But we'll see. We'll see how that goes. ERX is 2 times bull shares.
Sure.
Yep, it needs to clear that. I would say that the June 15th, June 16th gap down XLE for it to be like an all clear sign, right? Like it can't just fill the gap like we just did with Apple and then revert, like 2022, fill the gap and reverse lower. It's got to clear it. So I think the close there was 82.38 on June 15th, and it got down to what did it get down to? 80?
No, and coming back to big pharma, I mean, J&J, that's not J&J, that's J&J. I mean, like I can make a case for some pharma, like right off of a trend line there.
It's rejecting the 20 days.
Bristol Myers. Yeah, I mean, but I'm not saying it's the cleanest. I'm saying that there could be some upside for a trade is what I'm saying. Anyway, those are a couple things I like. I'm looking at. Another thing I really like, and you guys know I love it. Shout out to our boy B Ogilvy on semiconductor hit 75. Pay me my money, Ogilvy. I want my share of my penny stock as our gentleman's wager. GP, you were saying you like semis here, or at least on here. No, I shouldn't say semis.
So
you like on here.
I was actually like not necessarily like, because if semiconductors continue to have added weakness like all the other ones, then I don't think this one is going to all of a sudden be the leader and not break down with it. I think it goes with it. But I thought it was fairly freaking impressive that on a day like Thursday, where semiconductors were really kind of hot all day, to reverse down on Friday, like NVIDIA got smoked, AMD, Broadcom.
Anything not named on semi got smoked.
and this was down less than 1%, right? After a pretty large move up over 7 weeks here. I figured this would have a bit more weakness than the others, and it instead just kind of held its ground, put it in an inside day near the top of the day's range from the day before. It's obviously close to all-time highs. It's out of the weekly bull flag. There's a lot of stuff to like about this, but overall market sentiment eventually succumbs to all. So would I be putting on any positions in any of this stuff until we see better holds from the market? Probably not.
I think it's worth picking your levels.
Yeah.
I mean, from a, again, kind of from a, you know, if you're trying to trade and navigate this market, I think if you have your levels kind of picked out, especially kind of like in that, I'm thinking more or less kind of the big cap tech like Amazon, Google, Tesla, even like your NVIDIA. Because again, like I think if we do end up holding higher here, we're just setting up for the next leg higher. But if we roll, then obviously all bets are off.
Yeah, and Nick, my thoughts always, my thoughts been that we're going higher, but that was a very disappointing Friday, right? Like I hate to base my views on one freaking day, but I was not expecting a puke on an OPEX week, right? On the last day. I was expecting it to kind of go sideways. So it was really disappointing to see. And it was the underneath action that was really disappointing to me, right? Like if you're looking at some of the high growth names, Affirm got smoked on Friday, right? Like and Upstart and a lot of the things that have been moving, they're still holding well above their lows. So it's a good sign, but yeah, I just thought that was a really disappointing way to finish the week.
Yeah, I'm glad I wasn't here, honestly. Yeah, I mean, I would back to On for just a sec. I would probably look at On sort of in this box, right? It broke out of this rectangle. It's into this rectangle now, and probably up to around $78. If it gets there, I would expect it to at least pull back in some. But yeah, I mean, semis as a whole, we've got Franny in the chat over here, just championing QCOM, and I love Qualcomm. But I mean, we've got some RSI trending down there, and just as a whole on semis, just not a great look. Needs to really hold the SMH, just really needs to hold this 9 weekly. But yeah, that doesn't look good. I'd want to see it hold like 230.
Yeah, and you know what's been interesting? You know what's been interesting, Bags, in the whole semiconductor space. Like, it's been interesting to see that the semis not named AMD or NVIDIA are actually been relatively strong compared to those two. Obviously because those all like ran quite high and strong for a really long time. But yeah, it's been interesting to see that the ones that are more widely owned acting shittier than the non-widely owned ones, so to speak.
Zach's trying to get banned from the chat. He's saying NVIDIA 20% down this week, 50% down next week. He's really trying to get banned.
Damn.
But no, I mean, again, there's a lot of semiconductors that I do like long term, but I'm just saying right here at this price point, the way the chart looks, it's not the most compelling trade that I would want to get in. I mean, believe me, I don't like saying, hey, I kind of like energy for a trade. That's not my nature. That's not my MO. It's not who I am. It's not, I mean, I guess I need to reevaluate my life a little better. But I just don't enjoy investing or trading in energy and big pharma, but to me they have better charts than what I'm seeing in semiconductors. AMD, obviously, you know, everybody loves Lisa Su, everybody loves it, you know, unless you're an Intel fanboy. You know, it's not the best look here. NVIDIA earnings this week. I mean, it could absolutely do this. I mean, I might take some around 167 or something like that. That was, Elliott wave down to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 up. We'll see. Maybe it's possible, but the market really has to participate, and NVIDIA can help recharge the market, I think, with a strong performance, but they already guided down, right? So how strong is it really going to be?
It's their commentary, right? That's what's going to their guidance and their conversations on the call. So it's not going to be the numbers that matter. It's what they're going to say into the fact that they're guided down, right? Was it a one-time thing, etc. I start with the monthlies, right? It's where I usually start, and the NVIDIA and AMD monthlies have shown people starting to buy in pretty hefty zones down here. So this is kind of what I'm watching, and starting to establish a volume profile base here on the monthly, right? That's pretty.
It's not insignificant. It's not insignificant.
Yeah. So I'm watching this, and like obviously the daily looks like garbage. The weekly doesn't look much better, but the monthly is still holding above prior months high, I believe. Well, AMD is for sure.
Yeah, and 2 weeks to play out, or 2.5 weeks to play out too, right? So like there's still a lot of unknowns out there. The good thing is we've got OPEX out of the way on Friday, and I think that for the market as a whole is a good thing. But just me wanting to jump all in on semis. Yeah, again, you guys know I love semis. I'm not there. QCOM's monthly doesn't look too bad either. But at the same time, we can have their bear flags until they're not, and we got a whole bunch of bear flags all over the place. So hopefully they break out for the bulls, or the bears gotcha again.
Yeah, and so the QCOM is above the monthly 20. So is Broadcom as well. So
a name that I've mentioned numerous times that I still like, and that could absolutely do the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 leg up too.
So is Lattice Semiconductor. The only one that always really sucks outside of Intel is Micron, because they just never get any love, unfortunately.
No, Intel sucks donkey toes too.
I mean, 23 years since their prior all-time high.
I mean,
but it was nice to see some of the things like HD, right? Home Depot had a really good earnings reaction.
So did Lowe's. I've spent enough money at both of those stores over the past month and a half.
Right, and it's had a nice little flag here that's forming on the daily. It's nice to see that the stocks that represent a big part of our consumer economy were having good reactions. But yeah, this is an interesting couple of weeks here going. It feels like the market charts look like the Fed's decision-making abilities. So it's all data dependent, right? So I wouldn't be surprised if we just hold sideways to down or sideways to a bit up until the next CPI report. That's another 3 or 4 weeks we could be like this. So
you guys want to take some questions or do some live charts? We got about 10 minutes.
Yeah, let's do some questions first.
All right. First up is thoughts from Hari Krishna Nalruri. I'm sorry if I killed your name. Thoughts on TAN and ENPH. I haven't looked at either one of them in a bit. I know First Solar has ran like a scalded dog.
They look all right. I mean, ENPH is definitely the strongest, and FSLR are definitely strongest of the bunch. TAN looks good too. SEDG is just the one that was kind of the one that got pummeled. Run looks good. They're all above their 20-day. Volume was light on their sell-off.
It's got the dreaded rounding top pattern in 2022, which just ends up dying. So
not in a good way, right?
Yeah, it's never kind
Not in
of
a good
great,
way.
but I agree. It's above the 20-day. The volume has been really light on this. FSLR pulled a 68% move in 4 weeks. It
Yeah.
needs rest.
Yeah.
Ultimately, so I can see solar energy kind of being a bit of a laggard, but you have the
So
administration telling you.
I'll drop some stuff right here. I started my small account challenge back up. I'll be trading in it starting this week. And one of the names that I looked at was a short on First Solar. I just think that a pullback into this area right here, this 108, 109, is probably pretty likely. I think that would be good for it because it's run so hard. So if it can start sort of cool off in this area, right, like through here somewhere.
It's such a wild looking monthly chart.
Yeah, man, it's on another
Yeah.
level right there. I mean, it's
Dude,
just charged out.
It broke out of a 10-year base. Excuse me. It broke out of a 10-year base in 2021, only to completely freaking fail it. It was
Yeah.
just. It was like.
I know, it's just ridiculous. Yeah.
And it wasn't on a lot of volume, right, Nick? It wasn't
Yeah.
like it was and the fundamentals aren't like crazy on the actual stock. It's not like it's trading at 60 times revenue or something like all the cloud names. So
Sure.
it was really interesting to see how badly it got demolished. And then in 4 weeks they completely reversed the
whole move. I know.
Our good buddy Pratt wants to know of our panel who's got the biggest peach of the three hosts. I gotta say it's GP. I mean, you've seen that cartoon. His lady ain't gonna draw that big old donk on there for nothing.
Yep. I don't know what any of that means, but yep.
Zach says he's thinking of shorting Lulu at resistance on the weekly, and he specifically mentioned Nicholas. Nick, what do you think?
How can you?
This is not financial advice.
I mean, hot chicks and tight pants. Yeah, I don't know. Lulu looks. You're short basically versus the 200-day, which is I don't think a bad spot to be short against at all.
Yep.
I mean, it's a pretty low risk entry here for sure. I like it. I like the trade.
All right. Bryce,
I think
that's Apple going. You had something, GP?
Yeah. So I think what you have to also see is like 200-day has become resistance now for the 4th time since we started the year. But what you're starting to see is that the other moving averages are starting to catch up and cross over, right? So the trend is shifting, albeit a bit slow. So you want to see those kind of short-term moving averages continue to kind of trend higher and arch up. So once we do clear the 200-day and the other moving averages that are on a shorter time frame start acting better, we actually have a better trend. Until then, we're still under the 200-day and a lot of moving averages. Like if you're looking at Lulu, the 8, 21, 50, and 100 are all under the 200-day. So was it going to break out? Yeah, if there was some news, but there wasn't. So it's going to go with the market. So it's shorting resistance while the short-term moving averages are still under the 200-day is a smart play.
Yeah, I think on Lulu you could get that 312-ish area. If one were so inclined to make a trade in such a manner, I think that wouldn't be the worst thing in the world.
Yeah, it's the same thing with Tesla, right? Tesla two times now in the last month and a half has tried to clear the 200 SMA, but the 8, the 21, the 50, and the 100 are all under the 200-day, right? So it's had a lot of trouble. So that it's a good idea to.
Yeah. Bryce asks, Apple going down tomorrow.
Sure.
I mean, sure. I mean, yeah, you can. I mean, down for what? Down a couple bucks, down to zero? Probably not, right? Like, I mean, I don't know, Bryce. It sounds like you already bought some puts or are already short. So, I mean, it could happen. I could see a breach of, the 9 daily there easy. Or, I mean, I'm not going to say it's going to pull back into 160 tomorrow. That's very unlikely, but who knows? It ran hard. Didn't look great to close the week, so we'll see.
Watch that. Do you remember when in 2021, post Thanksgiving, Powell came out and said some nonsense over the weekend, and we got down hard on that Monday? That's when all this began. Watch that high for Apple. I think that's the level you should be watching for short or for long.
All right.
Which is 170.
Our buddy Pratt came back with XBI. I just think it's a failed breakout, and false moves bring fast moves, Pratt. But I'll let our resident genomics and biotech nerds tell you more.
It's
on XBI.
XBI.
For me, I've been talking about XBI for a couple of months now, but the last couple of weeks we're in that pretty solid supply chop zone. So I'm expecting a range of 80 to 97 to be kind of like this for the next few months, right?
Yeah.
So it's a wide range.
80 would be a sweet entry if you're looking to either add, or if you're already long and looking to add, or if you're looking to enter. I think.
Yeah.
I agree with you. I think 80 is a good. I mean, the 50 days sitting there basically 81. You got that gap to fill right there. Also, basically 81. You got that gap at 85 also. So I mean,
there's a bunch. I wouldn't be surprised with the original gap up retested, right? Which is around 80 as well. You have the 50 crossing back over the 100 days. So the short-term moving averages are starting to really, as the data set from so 50-day is based on the last 50 trading days. So once 51 days falls out, 52-day falls out, these start to accelerate. And if you're going back 50 days, it's around that supply zone. So these are starting to curl up more on the moving averages. And so you saw the 50 to 100. So it's trying to repair itself. And we hope that it stays within this range while it does this repair work. It was a big, brutal move down. I wasn't expecting it to go bananas. It was really nice to see the 200-day holding for a while, but it's still on a decline. It's still decelerating.
Randy shouts out the trash trucks. My Baby Bags, the original, loves the trash trucks too, but Waste Management, boy, oh boy, market leader. Look at that thing. I will always regret selling from 74 up into the 90s. Like that was a bad choice.
Damn,
that was a bad choice.
Yeah.
I'll give myself some minus D there on the monthly chart to make me feel a little better. But yeah, it was a bad choice.
That's a rough Thursday and Friday though. But nice, it still maintained the top part of the range. So,
yeah, no, I mean, it's. I mean, there you go, GP. It's done nothing but perform.
Yeah, it's one of those stocks that whenever you do get dips, it's like Costco, right? Like. Yep. You're looking for dips to buy.
Buy it, keep it forever, right? Yeah. That was one of the names that I really wanted to get back into after the dump, but everything was so hot in 2021 or 2020. It was hard to make that choice given the performance. Peggy and TXG. I don't know what Peggy is. PGY. Pineapple Energy. No clue. Penny stock. Don't know it. I wouldn't. I mean, it's not my thing, brother. It doesn't look great, but
TXG looks like it's about to leg down too.
If you want a penny stock that's in energy, then Rig is your probably miserable contender. right? There's a lot of volume.
Genomics. Yeah, that doesn't look great to me either.
But if you look at rig on the monthly, that's some heavy accumulation. So I don't know if it's ever going to go, and they just keep accumulating, but it's heavy accumulation on the monthly.
I mean, it don't look bad, honestly, GP.
No, it just doesn't go anywhere.
Yeah, it just doesn't go anywhere, but it don't look bad. There's a lot of charts that look bad, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Not looking bad. That's the new hotness in 2022.
I traded this from like the 330 or 290 range last year up to like maybe 6 or something like that. And then it started failing badly, and I was like, I'm out. Like, I don't want to figure out what this was gonna do, and it's just literally gone sideways. It's not a fun chart, but they are accumulating.
3-minute warning. What do you guys for forecast for the week? Last week I said flattish. I don't think we necessarily got flattish. I think we got. Let me clarify that. I think we
lost like 2.6% on
1.16%. So that's flattish on the S&P, and on the Qs it was 2.28%. So that would be a down week. Same thing on the small cap. So I'll say down week. Best case scenario I think is a flattish week, but I'm leaning toward a down week again this week.
I am going to be data dependent on direction. I like that the fact that the gap is holding. So if I was leaning anyway, it'd be slightly bullish, but it's like 50.1%.
Yeah, right. Yeah. I mean, you gave your tail away earlier, right? When you said I might flip sides.
Yeah. Well, dude, the price action is what we got to be watching here, right? It rejected a key resistance point and it followed through to the downside to close the week. That's not bullish by any means. But if we hold this area here and reverse higher, then we broke all the short-term downtrends that I was following. On the 1 hour, the 4 hour, it's all not great. So
100p agree.
Yeah.
Nicholas.
I think it's going to be kind of just a range week. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if we go after that 315 on the Qs.
Yeah, that wouldn't be a surprise, would it?
I think it would hold though, and ultimately we kind of bounce from there.
Yeah,
at least first.
That wouldn't be a surprise.
I don't want it there, obviously,
no,
but I don't think that's a good look personally. I think it's got to hold that gap.
I think any bounce could be shorted there, probably.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think the Qs, the 21-day moving average, is what you should be watching for a better sign, which is where the gap is as well. Nick, if it goes back to 316, I'm not very confident it's gonna bring in a lot of buyers. There's a lot of net shorts over the last 2 months, right? They're gonna be pushing.
For sure.
As always, it's hard for me to disagree with both of you rational, scholarly men.
Hey, man, I was pretty bullish last week. I had to flip script.
I know. It was some cold water. That was some cold water. So it was. All right, gentlemen. Our time for the week is done. Nick, are you going back on vacation, or should we expect you again next week?
I don't know. My wedding anniversary is next Sunday, so I would.
I'd
probably out next week.
Yeah, Nick's out. We're already calling it here.
Yeah,
if you show up on the podcast, you're going to be more than in trouble with us.
unless you bring her on the podcast with you.
Yeah, maybe
we can talk. Then we can have a conversation. Yeah.
We're going away for the weekend, so it'll be good.
We should have the TA Report Wives Club one podcast.
Wouldn't that be something?
That'd be fun.
They're definitely just going to call us idiots and talk about how much of idiots we are.
Pretty much.
Yep.
All right, guys. Hey, as always, thank you so much. I appreciate you both for always making my Sunday a little bit better, for always dropping a little more knowledge upon me. Thanks to everybody in the chat. This was a great chat tonight. We had all kinds of folks and not just Randy. Hi, Randy. Thanks for showing up. You're always here for us. But yeah, we had several people going back and forth. So really appreciate you guys tuning in. Appreciate you guys watching. Hopefully make some money in your accounts this week and stay safe out there. Thanks, guys.